There's plenty of references to the great punk music of the 90s, especially Riot Grrrl music like Bikini Kill um and my brain was like literally like and no other bands. Hi, I'm Joanna Garner and I'm the playwright of Punk AF. I've had the idea for this show in some form for many years because I was a high school punk rocker. And so that really lives inside me, this part of myself that was so free in expressing herself and tapping into that rage. And, as we get older, that doesn't become as accessible, the ability to just stand in front of a mic and scream your head off. And so I've had this question of, can I create a theatrical experience that embodies that youthful spirit while also putting into question what it means to be an adult and have it all together? And so I think I've been writing this play in my head for many years, and when Chance came to me and asked me to write a new show, the idea was there bubbling under the surface, so it was the time for it to come to fruition. It's a show about women in their 40s who are mad as hell about a lot of things in their life and don't really have any outlet for that rage. And one of them in particular realizes that the last time she felt true freedom in expressing herself was in high school, in this punk band that she was in. And so she decides to literally get the band back together, even though they haven't seen each other in 20 years and most of them are not punk at all anymore. They come back together to ask that question of like, can we still express our rage in some way with each other? So this is a play with music. Dare I even say a musical? I don't know. I'd say there are at least 10 songs in the show that are in the punk, Riot Grrrl, pop punk sort of genre. And they are definitely woven into the piece. And we have music sort of in the present as the characters are in their 40s, and the music is used to illuminate what's going on in their heads. So that's sort of more traditional musical style where these women have a moment to step into the spotlight. And then there's the music of their youth. So we see them play their high school selves as well. We actually flash back to the past and we see them play songs together and write songs in the moment together. There's also music woven in of the time, the bands that I loved as a teenager, Riot Grrrl music like Bikini Kill, like Hole, as well as like The Clash and The Cramps and the Dead Kennedys. These bands that really influenced me as a musician are really woven into the show in different ways. At this point, I've written the lyrics, which are really just kind of placeholders. And so the music itself does not yet exist. My hope is that I do have a musical collaborator who I've worked with on previous shows in the same way, where I'll kind of hand over lyrics and she will help create the songs. But we haven't actually hammer out exactly the details for this particular show yet. So I will say that there will be music and it is currently being written. There's a chance that I will just sit down with my electric guitar, which is here just out of frame, and actually write some punk songs. It's been a very long time. I haven't written punk music literally since high school. I've become more of a country musician. There might be a world in which I actually just sit down and write the music for the show, but my hope is that I'll bring in a musical collaborator who's a little bit more adept in writing really fun, upbeat rock punk songs that we can bring to life in the show. Actually, there's already a show called 100 Heartbreaks that I workshopped at ChanceTheater in 2019. So I wrote the country musical already. It exists and has actually been in development with Chance. Yeah, I'd say Holly, because originally I felt much more drawn to Mara. She is the former weirdo drama kid who loves Rocky Horror Picture Show, who is now in a creative career that is much more focused on marketing and branding and feels a little like lost in her romantic relationships, which is like kind of me. And so when I started the show, I really was like kind of started with her and her story. You know, she's the first one that walks on stage. But as I started writing the piece, Holly's story was the one that ended up emerging. She is this career woman who has found a fair amount of success in her career and has gotten to a place of asking the question of, what do I just put up with in order to exist in the system I'm in, you know, and how much misogyny do I want to endure in the workplace? And that ends up being the breaking point for her and the catalyst for the show, when she does something at work out of a moment of rage that gets her put on probation. And she's so fucking mad that the only thing she can think to do is call her high school friends and get them back together to try to channel some of that rage into music. Of course, their reaction is like, Holly, what? Like, we haven't played punk music since we were in high school. It's not like any of them, you know, are still musicians, but it's really about the energy and the spirit of friendship and that kind of raw, fierce connection with true desire and anger and opinions that we carry when we are young, that sometimes gets lost because we need to control ourselves, fit in a box, fit in a system. And so Holly's story is really one of her pushing out of that box and saying, no, I'm really angry, and I actually am going to speak up about it and say something out loud, which is punk AF. A can of spray paint, an electric guitar, and a smashed beer bottle. I usually start with place and a sense of place, a sort of a feeling of the environment. So for this show, I kept seeing a very bland, well put together adult house, which is this Airbnb that the women have rented, because it felt so counter to the environment of their youth. They were practicing in the house of one of the girls, you know, so there was this sort of like bland suburbia feeling, but the women and the girls themselves were the sort of antithesis to that. And thinking of them in their like punk, grunge, like weird exploratory selves as teenagers, you know, one of them like paints a cat, paints whiskers on her face as a cat, and one of them always like wears a suit and tie. And I just was imagining these versions of themselves in contrast to their suburban living room, and then in the future, in the present moment, in contrast to this like adult life. So it really is environment that usually gets me started thinking about place and the sort of the juxtaposition of that environment with the different moments of the characters. Am I an order Muppet or a chaos Muppet is the question. I really have to kind of swing between the two. I often will start with a little bit more of the chaos and just kind of write into the idea, let myself be surprised, write without an agenda, have a margarita and let things flow. But I can't get too far in that because I've learned the hard way that, you know, I can get sort of like wildly off track, and then the construction of a play is a bit like a Jenga puzzle. In order to create something that is watchable, entertaining, feels really like emotionally accessible to the audience, does take some fine crafting. So I'll sort of toggle between free flow, tap into my flow state, creative channel, let that move through, and then get really clear about exactly how the arc of the scene is going. And this play in particular, took a lot of that toggling because there is such a wildness to it. I wanted to let myself just freely experience the unleashing of the play. But then I really wanted this to feel like a tight punk song, that it is really well crafted. I don't want to sound immodest. Grad school did show me the sort of mechanics of that. And so there was a lot of really carefully crafting the scenes and looking at what the characters want beat by beat and how we get there, in the arc of each beat. So I think it's a dance between the two. So this isn't weird, but I tend to wake up in the morning, get my coffee, sit down and write. And I've learned that there's like a process of kind of clearing the pipes that is very useful. So I'll do a little bit of journaling and just kind of get whatever's in my head out through my fingers. And then once that's clear, then I can move into more focused creative work. So that's not too weird, but that's a practice that I do. And then I am a practitioner of Tantra, sacred sexuality, and shamanic tantric creativity. So I really believe in kind of opening up the channel to the unknown through connection with the body and through pleasure and through energetic attunement. So I do have practice of creative meditation, creative sort of aligning of my energetic channel. So I will do that, especially if I'm stuck or I really need to be in flow for a while. I will start with that process. And if all else fails, and I don't condone this, but a shot of tequila when very stuck will help. I found Holly really by feeling into who of these women has the highest stakes at the moment. And so initially, in the first draft of this play, Holly was actually a cult leader, like kind of a guru, and that has changed. But my initial impulse was that she is somebody who knows how to get stuff done, and because of that, has been put in this position of having to shape herself into something that other people want. So in this new draft, she's not a cult leader. She is a successful executive at a high-tech startup. So she does have a lot of people looking to her, and the stakes are high. The stakes are high for her. I feel like it really just emerges over the scenes of the show, and I felt like I could feel her so clearly as a teen. This straight A student who wants everybody to like her and is charismatic and knows how to get things done. Who does that person become? And it felt pretty easy then to imagine who she is now in her 40s. Yeah, and I think it's even more satisfying to watch somebody who has things figured out, at least from the outside, and is like buttoned up and wearing the tailored suit. To see someone like that tap into their younger punk self, I think is even more satisfying. There's a moment when the women, like in the present, in their 40s, they sit down to eat these snacks that Holly brings. And, Holly goes up to her car and she comes back with these, like, all these snacks from their youth in their 90s. So like everything sugary and fluorescent and weird that we were eating as junk food as children. And there's kind of this like moment of the women being like, okay, yes, let's like politely enjoy these snacks that you've brought. And then they just start to go to town on them and devour them. And I can feel that moment. It just like in my body, this hunger for youthfulness, this like hunger for something nostalgic, but also just like eating is such a metaphor for how we attack the world. And getting to see these like women in their 40s just like going for it and just chowing down. I can't wait to see that on stage. It's funny, like I don't really have a desk. This is where I write, right here on my couch. And I can see from right here, I've got 2 decks of oracle cards and some instruments. I've got crystals on the floor and my dog next to me. And then also I'll show you, this is hilarious. I was making art the other day with a friend of mine, and I made this little watercolor that says, this will be backwards, but it says, "Is it still art if you know you will burn it?" And I think it's ugly, and I was like planning on actually burning it, but I haven't yet because I do really like that reminder. So maybe that's the most me thing that's near me at the moment. Possibly singing old school country music. Although I don't know, if they know 100 Heartbreaks, that might not surprise them. But maybe teaching, facilitating sacred sexuality and tantra workshops, classes and retreats. That might be a surprise. I love taking my dog to the dog beach at Huntington Beach. I live in Pasadena, so it's not close. Since moving to LA last year, it's my default reset is just go to the ocean, feel the sand under my feet, and take a deep breath. This was a long time ago, maybe in like 2013, I read Steal Like an Artist, and I love that book. It's all about the ways that we can sort of borrow from and be inspired by and remix other people's work. And that book really kind of opened up a new understanding for me of making work as a member of the larger collective consciousness, as opposed to somebody who has to come up with every original idea on her own. You're doing exactly what you need to do, and I know you feel like you have to live more before you can be a really amazing writer, and the answer is you do. So just keep living and keep being open to experiences, and don't worry, you will find the inspiration. I want people to wonder, what are the things in my life that I'm too afraid to say out loud? Like, where are the places where I could say the quiet thing out loud? And how might speaking up about something that is living inside me, as rage, as frustration, as anger, how might actually speaking that change someone else's life, change my life? Where are the places where I can take a stand and have impact just by speaking up and saying something out loud? But I also feel like there's something more visceral. I want the play to feel like it reached in and like ripped something open in the audience in an exciting way, and that you're given permission for a little bit more wildness, a little bit more expression and bigness and too muchness, and that you can pay attention to the thing inside you, that ember, that spark, that voice that's yelling and saying, hey, this isn't right, something in my life is not aligned, and I'm tired of not speaking up. I want that fire to get lit and people to leave being like, fuck, yes, I'm gonna make a change. I'm gonna do something big that shakes myself out of my stuckness. And so if I can ignite that, if I can open up a little bit more space for taking up room, then I will feel like the play did its job. Okay, I'm gonna speak a desire into the world out loud, which is that Carrie Brownstein from Sleater-Kinney somehow finds this show, sees this show, and wants to collaborate on this show. That is my dream. And I feel like I'm just going to keep saying it out loud until it happens. Come rock out with us at ChanceTheater, July 30th and August 3rd.